Beautiful Days, Danganronpa 1. Fujisaki-san is trying hard. Story by Sasaki Teiko. Illustration by Sayo Ichi. Fujisaki Chihiro had admired him since they first met. He only realized it a little while afterwards. Fujisaki was lauded as the super high school level programmer, but he wasn't the prideful type you would expect just from hearing that title. Rather, he carefully surveyed his surroundings as a slow starter who took his time figuring out his own feelings. Hope's Peak Private Academy, which had as its goal the collection of super first-class people of talent from each and every field. A powerful voice, coming from deep in the gut, flew out from one side of the cafeteria. "Hey! A man's soul lies in his pompadour! You can't just touch it! You're gonna mess up the seat!" It was Uwada Mondo, yelling. With his pompadour, long uniform coat, and baggy pants, the super high school level gang leader was the former leader of the gang that controlled the region. Perhaps he'd already finished eating, since the plate in front of him was empty. As he put his elbows up on the table, fixing his apparently ruined pompadour by combing through his hair with his fingers, Naegi Makoto frantically apologized. "Sorry, I wasn't trying to touch it. I was about to fall over, and I just... Oh, crap!" was written all over Naegi's face. His feelings were always apparent on his face. Uwada glared at Naegi, as if trying to intimidate him, clicking his tongue and standing up from his seat. "I'll be real generous this time. Next time, you better watch out." Yeah, got it. I'll watch out." As Naegi reflected upon his actions, Enoshima Junko looked askance at them, dissing, "So a man's soul can fall apart just by touching it? So annoying. What is with that?" Uwada just clicked his tongue again with a ch in response. "Stop right there, Uwada-kun! Didn't we decide to take care of our own dishes? What are you thinking, leaving and abandoning your tray like that?" Ishimaru Kiyotaka shouted, a fierce look in his eyes, following after Uwada at a brisk pace as he started walking away. As the super high school level hall monitor, Ishimaru would never consider running anywhere in the school outside of the gymnasium, so he generally moved with a strange posture and a fast walk. "Shut the fuck up! What was that? That is inexcusable, Uwada-kun!" The two of them were the delinquent and the hall monitor. There was no way they'd get along. They were both super high school level, so neither of them was going to back down. Every situation was explosive, and everyone else around them was always left in suspense. I'll take care of it for him, as an apology for earlier." And the one who drew the short end of the stick in these situations was basically always Naegi. Yeah, sorry," Uwada declared smoothly at Naegi's suggestion, and then walked away. The moment he opened the door, the hem of his coat fluttered, along with the crazy diamonds embroidery. "Uwada-kun is so cool." That's what Fujisaki thought. That's what he ended up thinking. Uwada's strength and daring dazzled him, and he could feel the manifestation of strength at the core of his rule-breaking behavior. "I want to try being like that." Fujisaki clasped his hands over his chest, watching Uwada as he left. He carefully looked over his own feelings as if he were finding bugs hidden in his programming, and as a result, he found admiration for Uwada in his own heart. It might be strange to compare admiration to a bug, but he was so charmed by Uwada's strength, it made him more aware of his own frailty than he'd ever been. Those feelings, both sides of the same coin, disrupted the peace in Fujisaki's heart enough for his feelings for Uwada to be considered a sort of bug. When Fujisaki returned to his own room from the cafeteria, he peered into the mirror. He saw his own face reflected there, cowering like a small animal. His naturally brownish short hair flipped up into the shape of a wave facing outwards. His eyes were round and brown. He was so baby-faced that he'd been mistaken for a grade schooler before, and he spontaneously let out a sigh at the sight of it. "I seem pretty weak." Even his voice seemed frail, tumbling out in a soliloquy. Well, a man's soul lies in his hair, doesn't it? Then maybe if I styled my hair like Owada-kun's, I'd become strong." "Yeah, right," he muttered, scooping up a lock of hair in his fingers as he faced the mirror. He crumpled his bangs up into something like a pompadour. Fujisaki's hair was as thin as a cat's, so even if he put it all over his forehead and raised his bangs, his hair escaped his grasp to fall through the gaps between his fingers. Even so, he hastily raised them up again and threatened in a small voice, imitating Owada, "Hey!" As he observed himself in the mirror, he determined one of the reasons he didn't look strong was his eyebrows, always sagging in anxiety. He made a scary face and tried again. He energized his whole body. For some reason, it wasn't his eyebrows, but his shoulders that raised, and his brow furrowed. But even so, Fujisaki's expression was gentle. A man's soul lies within my pompadour. It lies within. It lies within. He started speaking more quickly towards the end. His face was bright red at his assertion. For some reason, he was breathing heavily, as if he'd just been running. And yet, he didn't look strong at all. "It's no use after all." How pitiful. No matter how much he tried to mimic him, he might never be able to become strong like Owada. He was despondent, mood plummeting, and he let the hand holding up his bangs fall. Suddenly, Monokuma appeared where there had previously been no one. He was a cute white bear on one side and black on the other side, with a red eye and a fixed, evil grin cutting upwards. Headmaster of the school, he spoke with a characteristic rough voice that inspired anxiety in whoever heard it. "Ah!" As Fujisaki jumped in surprise, Monokuma said, Hey! Fujisaki-san! What are you doing locked away in your room with your breath all erratic? Are you messing around and it's so embarrassing you can't ever tell anyone about it? Hey, are you messing around and it's so embarrassing you don't want anyone to know about it? Ha! My cheeks are lighting up! Ha! His body squirmed, writhing. It's not messing around. But you're not gonna deny that it was embarrassing. Then it was serious embarrassment. Huh? He became uneasy, realizing that it would be embarrassing if the situation just now was revealed to other people. If it wasn't just messing around, then you were serious about it, right? You were up to something serious by yourself that was so embarrassing, you wouldn't tell anyone about it. I'm kinda out of it. You're turning me on! That's... And certainly, the root of Fujisaki's mimicry of Owada was not messing around, but a serious sincerity. Well then, I'll be going suddenly! Before Fujisaki could try to correct Monokuma's phrasing, he disappeared abruptly, just like he showed up in the first place. Just like Monokuma pointed out, it seemed Fujisaki held serious feelings for Owada that he couldn't tell anyone. The feelings of wanting to be like him. Was it okay to just do so superficially? If Owada's soul was inside his pompadour, and maybe Fujisaki could become like him with the same hairstyle. The next day, when he went to the laundry room, Uwada and Hagakure Yasuhiro were standing there. Uwada was standing tall, feet apart, and hands on his hips. Hagakure looked like he might be chuckling, crossing his arms and staring fixedly at the tumbling laundry.
Frankly, I can feel the cosmos in the washing machine. It generates cosmic power as it spins, right?
Hagakure spoke with an energetic fervor, but Uwada had a sour expression, and it wasn't clear whether he was listening or not. Uwada might not have known how to react to the things Hagakure did and said, as the super high school level fortune teller could be said to be mysterious, with odd priorities.
Huh? If it's the cosmos, then aliens might be coming out of here. No, but it's a washing machine, right? But is it possible that there's a warp mechanism that connects to the spaceship?
Hagakure kept confusing himself, holding his head in his hands, saying things that were difficult to understand, losing his cool on his own, and then coming to a conclusion on his own, was Hagakure's usual state of affairs.
Ah! What the fuck are you saying?
Uwada shot back, suspicious. Even his deep voice was burly.
Hagakure-kun, I don't think the school washing machines are connected to space.
Fujisaki timidly spoke up, as Hagakure was tearing at his explosive dreadlocks.
That so?
When Hagakure turned his head to respond, Fujisaki demurely gave his assent with a,
"Yeah,"
and Hagakure looked relieved.
We're serious?
"Yeah."
Uwada watched over their back and forth with sharp eyes, reserving judgment at least on his face. Feeling Uwada's eyes on him, Fujisaki flailed internally, unable to calm down.
"He's watching. Uwada-kun is watching me right now. Uwada-kun?"
Huh?
After receiving a glare back, Fujisaki was a little flustered as he strung together his words.
Well, your hair is cool."
He couldn't think about anything else since yesterday, so he just came out with it. He felt like he needed a pompadour with a man's soul in order to become cool. But the texture of Fujisaki's hair made it difficult to form into a pompadour.
Yeah.
Uwada blinked, and then continued.
You get it!
Then he suddenly combed up the hair beside his ears, looking away. The corner of his eye seemed a little softer, so he must not have taken the compliment in a bad way.
My hair is too soft, so I can't get it to look like yours. I wonder how you get it to always look like that."
There's a lot of techniques. It's a man's medal of honor, after all.
When Ishimaru and Uwada got up in each other's faces during their argument, he'd seen the tip of Uwada's pompadour fall apart and get disheveled, so it didn't seem like it was rock hard. He got the feeling he would get stronger if he touched it.
"I see. Hey, would it be okay if I touched it a little?"
You can't. A pompadour is a man's pride. You can't just go touching it for no reason.
So that means you can't touch it carelessly, but it can fall apart in a fight. You could really feel the particulars of Uwada's pompadour aesthetic.
"I guess so. Sorry."
Fujisaki started tearing up at the blunt rejection. A man's soul, a man's medal of honor, a man's pride. It seemed there were many various things packed into the bangs of a pompadour. Fujisaki apparently looked deeply crestfallen. An awkward expression appeared on Uwada's face as he said,
Sorry, you can't touch my pompadour. But when we get out of here, I'll let you touch my ride. So you gotta forgive me.
"Your ride?"
My bike. I barely ever let anyone ride it. But you seem like you understand what I'm talking about a little. My bike's a good bike.
Uwada had such a lively look in his eyes as he talked that Fujisaki also got starry-eyed as he listened.
Will you really let me touch it?
Ah, a man never goes back on his word. But it might get bad if the other guys in the gang catch you. We just gotta make sure we ain't caught.
I guess it would be shameful if they thought Owada-kun knew someone weak like me.
Fujisaki hung his head, and Owada scratched his cheek lightly with a finger as he said,
If they catch you, they'll, well, it's, the Crazy Diamonds is a pretty hardcore gang, so we don't let women in. Still, some of the other guys in the gang have mascots, and some of the others say they want one too.
Mascots?
As he repeated it with a blank look on his face, Hagakure to his side nodded, saying,
Grapes!
That's muscat.
Even Fujisaki knew this wasn't about grapes.
You're kinda, so those kind of guys will get hyped up about it.
She's kinda what? Hagakure forced himself further into the conversation.
Do you gotta harp on every little thing? What I mean is, Fujisaki's cute.
He sped through the last word more quickly, as if it pained him to say. Grapes aren't a thing that are cute or not.
No one's fucking talking about grapes!
Owada shot back at Hagakure. Hagakure crossed his arms, and after a brief moment of hesitation, said,
Oh, I get it.
You weren't talking about grapes, while nodding forcefully.
Yeah, we're talking about his bike.
After Fujisaki spoke, Hagakure agreed honestly. That's good then. Vintage hobbies are the best.
Oh, so you get it too, huh?
Some of the gang go with American models.
And even if they're a little old, those bikes are their life partners.
Wow, they sure are international if even Americans devote their life to them. 575, right?
I wonder if he's confusing bike with haiku.
Fujisaki's eyes kept wandering between Owada and Hagakure's faces, comparing them during their miscommunication. But they were smiling as they conversed, and he didn't want to go out of his way to point out the mistake. Then, from behind him, he heard a voice that sounded like slightly rusted metal.
Hey! What's with the peaceful harmony? Rude! What a totally rude conversation! You're supposed to be more bloodthirsty! So having a nice chat with smiles on your faces is gonna make everyone lose their self-awareness! That's the problem with kids these days. Mutual killing. Let's enjoy. Are you okay? Poem by Monokuma!
Deep wrinkles appeared between Owada's brows in an instant.
Shut the fuck up!
As Owada's murderous intent shot up, Monokuma said with an eerie laugh,
And here I thought I might finally tell you an embarrassing story about Fujisaki-san. Hey, guess what I saw yesterday? You know Fujisaki-san? Well, I saw her doing that in her room with her breath getting all erratic. An embarrassing story. He's going to tell them about how I was practicing acting like Owada-kun in front of the mirror yesterday.
They might laugh at him for doing something like that while being as weak as he was. What would happen if Owada was shocked? Fujisaki covered his face with both hands, feeling like he wanted to run away. However,
I told you to shut the fuck up! I don't give a shit about your stories. I'm a man who only believes what he sees. Get the fuck out of here!
Owada shouted at Monokuma. Monokuma said,
Dejection!
and put on a timid face before extinguishing himself. Owada continued, calling out to Fujisaki,
Oi, you
know, don't cry. He was apparently flustered, thinking that Fujisaki might have started crying after covering his face with his hands. The tip of his pompadour was drooping. He was bent over at the hip. peering into Fujisaki's face.
If that Monokuma bastard tries to say anything to you, I'll shut him up. Don't worry about it.
No, don't say that, Owada-kun.
Stricken by Owada's chivalry, Fujisaki really did start wanting to cry.
It's okay. I'm not crying.
He removed his hands from his face, and Owada seemed relieved as he said,
Okay.
Thank you, Owada-kun.
I didn't really do nothing. I just couldn't stand the shit coming out of his mouth.
Owada averted his gaze away from Fujisaki. The longing for Owada in Fujisaki's heart swelled up even more. His gaze was rooted firmly on Owada's profile, as it looked somehow embarrassed. As Fujisaki gazed at him wordlessly, Owada continued idly,
As a man, there's some things I can't forgive.
I see.
The underlying principle behind everything Owada did was that it was done as a man. How simple and bold Owada was. Fujisaki's chest burned and trembled. Passion passed between people. Owada's zeal for manly posturing was spreading throughout Fujisaki's heart. After talking for a bit longer, Owada left the laundry room. Left behind, gazing after Owada as if in a trance, Fujisaki murmured,
I want a hairstyle like that.
The hairstyle wasn't the problem. He knew that. But Fujisaki didn't have anything else of Owada's that he could quickly copy and imitate. If he could at least get the hairstyle down. Hagakure, hearing this, responded,
Huh? That's no hairstyle. Or, like, Owada-chi's hairstyle is some kind of French bread. Like a croissant or something. There's a 30% chance Owada-chi's got bread growing out of his head.
Bread?
He doesn't want you to touch it because there's bread inside.
Bread? Huh.
It was an absurd theory. But even Fujisaki could bake bread. Even if he couldn't become manly right away, he could bake bread.
It seems like there's lots of different things packed into a pompadour.
There was no doubt that the ideal pompadour style was if you could put bread in the center and lightly set the hair on top of it, so it wouldn't fall apart easily, but once you were in a fight with someone, the tip would fall apart. It was worth trying. That's what Fujisaki thought. Fujisaki went to the library to look for books on baking bread. There were plenty of recipe cards in the kitchen, but none of them explained how to make croissants or baguettes. The super high school level heir, Togami Byakuya, was there reading in the library. Togami made a pretty picture as he sat in his chair, turning the pages. But, fixing Togami with a passionate gaze, the braided and sailor-uniformed Fukawa Toko shouted suddenly,
What? There's no trespassing in the library without being a hindrance to Byakuya-sama, so what are you doing here? You lovable little rodent!
trying to chase Fujisaki out. Usually, Fujisaki would cede to Fukawa without argument.
But today, I'm trying my best. I mean, I want to become closer to Owada-san, if only by a little bit. I wanted to look for books with bread recipes,
he said, easily refuted, but vehemently responding to Fukawa.
Not only are you cute, but you're trying to make homemade bread. You aren't trying to attract Byakuya-sama's attention, are you? I mean, I'm an ugly bitch who can't do anything else, so...
Fukawa said, with a dark, melancholic voice, as if she was slithering on the ground. She made sure not to meet Fujisaki's gaze, staring instead at a point somewhere behind him.
That's not true! You're the super high school level literary girl! who has written such wonderful stories. I think you're amazing.
Fukawa froze after she was complimented. Fujisaki thought,
Now's my chance.
as he continued,
I'm sorry. I just want a book about bread, and then I'll leave right away.
standing before the bookshelves with a keen eye. He had planned on browsing quietly, but because his conversation with Fukawa was so loud, Togami looked up from his book, fixing Fujisaki with a sharp, cutting glare. Ignorant commoner, you're an eyesore. Go away.
That's right! Go away already!
As Fukawa backed up Togami's words to urge Fujisaki out, Togami stated, You too.
Ah!
Fukawa said, at a loss for any other words. After having somehow found a book about making bread in a corner of a bookshelf, Fujisaki said,
Thank you very much. Excuse me.
Before bowing and leaving the library. Recipe book in hand, he headed towards the kitchen. If there was anything in abundance in this school life, it was the ingredients. It had all the cookware you could need, too, and there was plenty of time to spare. Celestia Ludenberg and Yamada Hifumi had beaten Fujisaki to the kitchen.
Your royal milk tea is ready.
Yamada thrust out his lips to present the black tea, swelling up like an expanding balloon. But as Celeste brought the cup to her lips, she said,
Oh my, how tepid.
She furrowed the brow on her beautiful, doll-like, well-kept face. In an instant, she splashed the contents of the teacup onto Yamada's head.
Ah! Hot! Hot, hot, hot! Eek!
As Yamada squatted down, scratching at his head, Celeste declared,
It's not hot! Do you understand?
Then her tone and expression did an about-face.
It's fucking tepid! This temperature's fucking tepid! Maybe this way your body will absorb the temperature of royal milk tea so you actually remember it! You fucking bitch! Yes, my deepest apologies. I remember now, mistress. Oink.
It was just another average day for Celeste and Yamada. They shared a world just for the two of them that Fujisaki didn't wish to intrude upon.
Yamada-kun, are you all right?
Fujisaki still asked in a small voice, out of concern for Yamada. Very passionately, Yamada stood up and said,
What? I'm fine with just that.
Your worries are unnecessary. But immediately Celeste flung back,
Who gave you the right to stand up, you pig?
Oink!
It's my fault such terrible things are happening to Yamada-san, because I spoke up.
In truth, he wanted to save him, but if he tried, Celeste would just bully Yamada even further. Understanding this, Fujisaki hung his head, saying,
Sorry. Please, let me use this a little.
After turning them both down, he gathered the ingredients and started to sift the flour on the counter. Celeste's jeers and Yamada's screams dominated the kitchen for a little while longer.
What is it that you're making?
At last, Celeste seemed bored of kicking Yamada, coming up to Fujisaki's side to ask. And then, before Fujisaki could even answer, Celeste placed a hand on the recipe book set to the side, gazing down at it and murmuring,
Bread, is it? Fujisaki Chihiro dono, there is already bread in the pantry, so for what reason do you dare bake bread?
Asked Yamada, as he also drew closer to Fujisaki, pushing up his glasses with his finger and peering over at Fujisaki's handiwork. His hands froze as he wondered how to respond. He tilted his head and said,
Well,
looking back at Yamada standing next to him. In his mind, he had constructed a flowchart of,
I want to become like Owada-kun.
to,
I want to copy his hairstyle.
to,
I thought I would try putting bread in the center to fortify the bangs.
But it would be a little absurd to go through that whole explanation over again.
Why in the world am I baking bread? Thinking it over, I get the feeling that it's kind of strange.
Fujisaki hesitated, watching Yamada. Yamada hummed, his eyes closed tightly for some reason.
Yamada-kun, what's wrong? I'm 2D only, 3D nothing, 2D only.
Yamada muttered an enigmatic incantation, an expression of anguish appearing on his face as he said, Then, Celeste said calmly in a cold, icy voice,
I want a replacement for my tea.
Yamada's eyes flew open as he said, Yes, I shall get that for you right away, taking on the tone of a servant before running off to get the milk to brew the royal milk tea. He measured the ingredients, sifted the flour, mixed it together, and kneaded. As Fujisaki kneaded the dough until it was tightly packed, Yamada's glasses lenses flashed, watching over Fujisaki's handiwork with great interest. Holding her re-brewed royal milk tea in one hand, Celeste also seemed ready to eat, as she said,
There's nothing like freshly baked bread. I've come this far, so I have to bake it.
Even if he had come back to his senses partway through, he'd found himself in a situation where not baking the bread was an unacceptable choice. And what's more, even Asahina Aoi and Ogami Sakura entered the kitchen.
Hey! Let's make donuts! Donuts are so good! They're the food of the gods!
Asahina looked like she was devouring the yeast-fermented, swelling dough with her eyes.
Donuts.
Fujisaki parroted, looking down. Those were pretty far removed from Oada's hairstyle, though they were delicious. Perhaps seeing through Fujisaki's bewildered confusion as he looked between the dough and Asahina, Ogami declared with gravitas, Asahina, Fujisaki is putting much effort into making bread. I believe that in order to honor the effort she has expended thus far, we should allow her to make whatever bread she was originally planning on.
What? But I guess you're right. Fujisaki-chan wanted to eat bread, didn't she? So make bread this time, and let's make donuts next time. Yes, I shall make your donuts, Asahina.
Yay! A carefree smile appeared on Asahina's face, and Ogami nodded deeply. Asahina and Ogami were close friends and could communicate well. Their friendship was solid.
So how long does it take to make bread?
Celeste said, neglecting to read the atmosphere.
It looks like you knead it, let it ferment, shape it, let it go through a secondary fermentation, shape it again, and bake it. It takes about 3 to 4 hours, I think.
Secondary fermentation!
Yamada's nostrils flared in excitement. It was a mystery what could be so exciting about this phrase. He became all the more excited by the motions of kneading the dough.
My blood's rushing! Excuse me for a moment.
Yamada rolled up his sleeves, joining in on the bread making. Without even waiting for Fujisaki to respond, he collected up the dough in his hands and shouted,
Molding bread and molding figures have a lot in common!
My body is ready!
Is that so?
Fujisaki had nothing else he could say in response. Yamada molded intricate masses out of the dough, one after the other. Eyes wide, watching Yamada's effortless planning and prowess, Fujisaki also started making croissants, as he had originally planned.
Fujisaki, try hard!
Right! Go! Fight! Win, Fujisaki-chan!
The two athletic-type girls cheered Fujisaki on as he made his croissants and then baguettes, too. To the side, Celeste showered Yamada in mockery, but for some reason that was difficult to understand, he kept making bread with unnaturally high artistic merit. The instant the piping hot, freshly baked bread was taken out of the oven, everyone suddenly raised their voice in awe. The delicious smell of bread tickled their noses. Yamada clutched his chest, and Asahina jumped for joy. Ogami praised Fujisaki. "You did well. Fujisaki, you accomplished your goal admirably." While Celeste ordered Yamada with a smile, "Fetch me a new cup of tea." On the outside, it looked crisp, with faint burn marks here and there, but generally in good condition. He touched one with the oven mitts on. The insides were puffy, and it seemed like they would pop and squish if squeezed tightly. There wasn't any way to stuff hot bread in one's bangs without leaving a burn. And Fujisaki didn't really feel like he should put the bread in his hair anymore anyway. He tried so hard, and made the bread together with everyone cheering him on, so everyone should get to eat it.
"But I do want Owada-kun to eat it."
He'd strayed from his original intentions, but this was the fruit of his labor. Fujisaki had made this bread full of his own passionate emotion, his desire to become strong. Ding, dong, bing, bong. The sound of the chimes rang throughout the kitchen. The air shook, and everyone simultaneously pricked their ears to listen.
"Hey, guys! There's some bread baked for you! Everyone gather in the cafeteria!"
The contents of Monokuma's broadcast were completely harmless. The cafeteria table was crowded with plates to serve the bread. Despite it being bread that had been intended to be put on someone's head, it really did look best on plates.
The bread looks delicious, though there are also some pretty elaborately shaped loaves here.
Naegi always expressed the most straightforward impressions.
"You're right. Freshly baked bread smells so good. But I've been eating so much lately that I feel like I've gained some weight, so I don't know what to do."
Mizuno Sayaka revealed her very stereotypically teenage girl worries. Straight hair without a single kink, and a sailor uniform. A squeaky clean beauty, she was a member of an idol group popular nationwide. Kuata Leon came up from behind, extending a hand as he said,
"Taking the tastiest looking one!"
before yoinking one of the pieces of bread. He tossed the croissant in the palm of his hand a few times before taking a bite. With his red hair put up in a punk rock style and a large number of piercings, he was, despite appearances, the super high school level baseball player.
"Ow! It's hot! This is too freshly baked! Oh, hot! It's hot! Tasty, but it's hot!"
He tried taking a bite, but he apparently burned his tongue in the process, and flipped out for a bit as he drank some water.
Bread. I see,"
Kirigiri Kyoko murmured, gently touching the bread with her gloved hands, looking entirely like her body temperature was just naturally low. Kirigiri was able to diffuse the tension in any situation, always calm and composed.
"Some of them don't look like bread at a glance, but I suppose they're all bread,"
she said, examining one of the pieces of bread Yamada made. And then, when Owada appeared in the cafeteria, Fujisaki presented him with a different plate, holding croissants and baguettes.
"Owada-kun! I did it! I put my soul into these manly croissants and baguettes!"
Owada's eyes widened in surprise as he looked at the bread that was suddenly put before him. Manly? He kept looking at the bread, dubious.
"I made them. What should I do? Is he not going to eat them?"
Fujisaki's heartbeat rang out in his chest. "What? You giving him to me?" Owada said, picking up a croissant. He opened his mouth wide and took a big bite. "Oh,
It's hot. Maybe?
Tasty. What is this? This is way more tasty than any other bread I've had.
Owada kept taking bread from the plate and eating it one after the other. And just like that, he ate them up, and the plate was left empty. It only took about 5 minutes.
I spent so much time sifting flour, kneading the dough, letting it rise, and baking the bread. I can't believe you ate it all in 5 minutes. That's amazing, Owada-kun.
In the end, amazing was all he could think of it. Owada ate up all of Fujisaki's worries and trial and error in just 5 minutes. He reached out his hand without hesitation, stuffed his cheeks full of deliciousness, and gulped it down.
Huh? What is it? Sorry. Should I have spent more time tasting it as I ate it? Thanks for the food. I ate it all because it was so delicious.
I'm happy. It's an honor for you to have eaten it. Wasn't it hot? Are you okay?
Of course it was hot. Didn't you say your soul was dwelling inside of it? Eating it before it gets cold is just what a man does.
My soul?
Yeah, I've understood your soul.
Owada flashed a bright, sparkling smile.
You felt my soul, Owada-kun. Mine, from someone like me.
Don't talk about yourself that way. It was delicious. It was so damn delicious.
Owada met Fujisaki's gaze and nodded forcefully. With just that, Fujisaki could die happy. Owada had given a lot to Fujisaki without knowing it. He'd given him courage, hope, and everything he needed to raise his head high and live without apologizing for it. Owada panicked as Fujisaki was moved to tears.
What? Why are you crying?
I'm just happy.
Huh?
Owada-kun! What have you done to Fujisaki-kun? Ishimaru made his way briskly towards them, flaring up at Owada.
I didn't do anything!
But is Fujisaki-kun not crying?
Shut up! What? You want to go, fucker?
They got right up in each other's faces, glaring and shouting at each other. Just as they started grabbing at each other, Fujisaki said haltingly,
No, you're wrong. You've got it wrong.
But it was about as effective at getting them to stop as a Maltese's howls would be at getting a larger dog and a wolf to stop snarling at each other. And so, this riot continued, up until Togami, the last one to arrive at the cafeteria, encountered Owada and Ishimaru grabbing onto each other near the door, and said, What? You're in the way, and glared at the both of them. The end. Beautiful Days, Danganronpa 1. Pigtail Paradise 1. Story by Mizusawa Nana. Illustration by Asaki Taoru.
You know, can you really even believe this?
The one who suddenly came out with this in the cafeteria was Enoshima Junko.
What's wrong, Enoshima-san?
Mizuno asked in return, tilting her head slightly as she sat across from her.
I've been thinking, aren't there kind of a lot of people wearing this look? Wearing what?
Mizuno looked around the table at Enoshima's words. Excepting Enoshima and Mizuno, there were 5 other people sitting there. Kirigiri Kyoko, Asahina Aoi, Fukawa Toko, Celestia Ludenberg, and Fujisaki Chihiro.
Can you tell by looking? It's the hairstyle! The hairstyle! How come out of 7 people, 3 of them are wearing pigtails? I'm gonna be totally real here and say that it's seriously annoying.
Celeste snapped back.
Oh my, how very regrettable. Though it is an annoyance for me as well. Pigtails are the trademark of a gothic-style character such as myself. A bitch-style gyaru like you can just volumize it or curl it or do whatever you want to it, can't you? Huh? What was that?
Who are you calling a bitch, you sow? Now fighting. It suits you both, so it's fine.
Asahina stepped in between the dangerous pair. Fukawa, watching the back and forth with a sidelong glance, let slip a complaint.
Ugh, are you calling this hairstyle pigtails? Aren't mine braids? And even if you have a problem with them.
Huh? But if it's done up in 2 parts, isn't that what makes pigtails?
Fujisaki interjected in a timid tone of voice.
You be quiet! Byakuya-sama is the only one who can talk back to me. I'll kill you.
Ugh, I'm sorry.
Fujisaki trembled violently at Fukawa's abrupt change in demeanor. In her fright, she clung tightly onto Kirigiri's arm next to her.
Don't worry, you won't be killed. Why don't you calm down a little? More importantly, it's pointless to get so invested in your hairstyle. If you hate wearing it so much, why don't you try shaving it all off?
Enoshima's eyes filled with anger at Kirigiri's flat proposal.
Huh? No way, right? I don't need you butting in here.
It was Asahina's voice that shattered the dangerous atmosphere at the table.
Oh, well then, let's decide who's the queen pigtailer. And then, whoever wins earns the right to wear pigtails.
And that's how everyone ended up in pigtails.
Of course they suit me. I'm the super high school level gyaru, after all.
As Enoshima jerked her chin up, Celeste protested.
If that's what you say, then they suit me even more naturally. I am an orthodox pigtail character. Ah, okay. They suit you both just great. I think my usual ponytail might fit me better after all. That's not true. They suit you very well too, Asahina-san. I don't have much volume to my hair, so they don't really suit me. Is that so? I think there's something only a professional idol could pull off. Thank you, Kirigiri-san. They suit you a lot too.
What? You're getting pretty close there, complimenting each other on your appearances. Not like you do it to someone like me.
Fukawa flared up, having put her braids up higher than usual.
That's not true. They suit you too,
Fujisaki said, still frightened, and Fukawa averted her eyes.
I don't want pity from a girl like you who barely has enough long hair to put in pigtails. No way.
Just as the mood was getting dangerous again, someone new pushed her way through.
What has happened to all of you?
It was Ogami Sakura. 7 sets of eyes pinned her down.
Sakura-chan, what's with that hairstyle?
Ogami's long and usually unkempt hair had been pulled into 2 beautiful pigtails.
Ah, this? The wind is strong today. I simply tied it up so it would not pose a hindrance to my training.
Asahina went over to Ogami briskly, taking her left hand and hoisting it over her head.
You're the winner! What? What do you mean?
While Ogami was still dubious, the other 6 people gave a sparse round of applause. The end. Footnotes. 1. In Japanese, the word they're using for bike or motorcycle is baiku, which is very close to haiku. 2. In another bit of wordplay that is difficult to translate, the phrasing used in secondary fermentation has the same beginning as 2D, niji hako, versus nijigen,